Have you ever met Miss Lindy? She's a gal with the bright red hair. Now she stands out from all the rest. You know her anywhere. Where she's mine. Yeah, she's mine.
Well, welcome back to Victory Podcast, where we talk about all things life, small business, and pie. Hi, Sheila Blue.
Hello, Bailey.
So glad to be here. We are talking this week about a very near and dear topic to both of our hearts, which is saying no in business. And I'm excited to have you here.
Right. I'm excited to be here. Oh,
Hi, Nate.
he's on the podcast we're recording.
um,
Hope he
well,
walked in.
Yeah, how he walked in. Well, I have a couple questions for you, Sheila. Some of these might be kind of curveballs, so take your time in answering them. But
You
my
got it.
first question is whenever I'm trying to figure out how to do something new, and saying no for me was something new for quite a long time. I like to think I've gotten a little better at it over the years, but sometimes it still feels new. I like to look around me and see people that are doing really well at the thing that I
Hmm.
want to learn to do. And so I'm curious for you, who is somebody that you know, or somebody, it doesn't even have to be somebody personal that you know, that
Sure.
is good at saying no, at drawing boundaries in their life?
You know, I've said it several times. Actually, one of the people, and funny enough, is my youngest son, Sam, is probably one of the best people I know that says no. And I kind of have two actually. Sam is, and he's really good, and I do believe, and he might have even said this at one point, that he's learned how to say a good no because he watched me
Mm.
not say good no's in
Wow.
business for a long time, and stretch myself and pour myself too thin. And as one of my kiddos, he suffered from the loss of my time for him, but also when I did say no and made time when I did it right, he benefited. And so, he's really, really good. And I kind of envy how good, because I'm still working on it a little bit, how good he is at being able to say and a healthy no and have that boundary with his time. And then the other was I had a business coach for years, quite a while back. Her name was Danny Johnson. And she was really good about no's and setting time. And that's where I actually started to learn to say no and what is a healthy no.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a big one. Yeah.
Hmm. Wow,
Those are my
that's
two.
really sweet. I hope Sam hears this podcast. That's really sweet.
Two. Yeah.
My mom, I like think my mom hung the stars and moon. She's the best woman I've ever met.
I love
And
that.
the other day she told me that I was a better woman than her, and I was like,
Oh,
"What do you mean?" And she said, like, you get all the characteristics you think are good about me, they get better with your children. And I was like,
oh,
that's such a like hopeful thing for me because she's so wonderful. I know Sam probably feels the same way about you. So
oh.
that he got to, get that characteristic is sweet. Well, you said, a little bit about like not having been able to give time the places that you wanted to because you didn't say no. What were some other like consequences that you faced for not saying no?
For not saying no, mine, we tend to label it self care, but my health, honestly,
Uh,
my health was jeopardized by not saying no. And so was time in my marriage, honestly, time for my marriage, for my husband and I. I think I think the relationships that for me are life relationships, I by not saying no, it didn't allow me time to cultivate those. So that when things slowed down or stopped, it was always like, let me just say yes to this, and then I promise we'll get to that. And not only do we maybe never get to that, but now that is even more strained,
hmm,
um, because time wasn't given, just like time was given for, maybe even in charitable things like giving of my time for other people. It didn't necessarily even mean business, but saying yes to certain things and not to others. I mean, the dog you feed is the one that grows.
hmm,
So it's kind of like, I think my world that feeds me was the thing that suffered, honestly. So again, it would be like my health, my time spiritually that I was spending for my peace, that I spend for me in the Word of God, that suffered. Time with my husband, time with my kids, even friendships, they were pretty much nil. So I think those were a lot of the things that for me suffered by not saying no to some other things.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you've been in business for a long time. Like you know the ins and outs of like the hustle and grind culture. And
Oh, yeah.
I think like what we're not saying obviously is like don't work hard. Like you like you know you when you run a business, when you start a business,
Yeah.
you will have to like show up and bust it for a
I,
while.
Absolutely. I love that. And it's so true because that I think, therein lies the balance. And
Mm,
it's so hard and we're always trying to find that and what does that look like? And I think and I do believe now we have in our culture this, well, I'm not going to work that hard. I'm going to feed, I'm going to feed myself first and all these things. And that's great. We need that time, but and I do come from the hustle and grind culture, those 80s
mm,
kids
yeah.
born in the 70s. But at the same time, you cannot build something, and this is just fact. I can't put 15 to 20 hours a week into something and expect to build,
Mm,
the business that I was trying to build. You do have to put it in. But what I have learned is when you're in, and that's part of this no, this healthy no. And I've watched it as an employer. I've watched it as an entrepreneur, self-employed, and I've watched it as an employee helping others. But when you're at work, say no to your phone, say no to distractions. And, if you need to eat lunch to be healthy, put your phone on do not disturb for your 30 minutes for your break. Don't
mm,
lock your door, put do not disturb on your office door. I have girlfriends that are entrepreneurs or teachers in the business world and things. And they're like, I'm constantly interrupted. I can't get my work done. I have to bring it home. I'm like, can you just hang do not disturb on your door for 30 minutes? Eat your lunch, do your thing, or take your phone calls in the morning so you're not interrupted or get your work done for 2 hours. There's all that kind of stuff. And I did that too. Actually, I got to a place with my kids. We homeschooled, did stuff. They had work to do, independent time work. And I said, hey, we put a timer on. Here's a block of 2 hours, and mom is not to be disturbed for 2 hours. That's it. And they weren't like 4 year olds. Okay. These were older kids at this point. So you have to be relative in what we're doing. But it was like, do not disturb. And I could get so much done. Now, mom's work's done. So now I'm with you. Now it's all about you. The
yeah.
phone's off. I'm not taking a work call anymore. I'm not. So I think the important part is that whatever we set for ourselves, a 20, 30, 40 hour work week, whatever those things are, as entrepreneurs or as employees, I think it's necessary. I don't think we realize how many no's we don't use.
Mhm.
And also, here's the other thing that I've learned. When you there's a need to be needed when we don't say enough no's.
Yeah.
And even in business as a mom, oh, okay, oh, what do you need? And then we're just like, oh, can I just get a break? And it's like, well, we create that a little bit. And we don't create independent thinkers and we don't create critical thinkers and we don't allow our kids to resolve their own problems. There's so much greatness in that. And it's okay if they suffer for a second there. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
obviously not something detrimental, but it's not going to kill them if this thing isn't answered right this very second. That's the real world. And I think we don't have enough of that anymore, this instant gratification, but also at work. Hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do this? You're the answer man. And it's like, that feels good. Everybody comes to you and it's
Yeah.
like, but then they don't have to fix their own problems. And then you're frustrated and your work's not done, but theirs is. And they go home at 5 and you're like, now I'm here till 8 because I answered all their questions. And you're like, wait a minute. Who? So I'm like, I think there's a lot of those healthy no's. So in that balance, yeah, you got to grind, you got to work, especially if you're building something. But keep in mind while you're building, be focused on the task at hand, and that's it for right now. And if you know stay true to what you're doing, and then when it's time to end that, this is so hard for entrepreneurs, and it's hard for me even now. When that day is done, leave it there,
Mm,
leave it there.
mhm.
And then when you're home, or if you have to do things, set a time for it and be done. But like, we had for a while, because I had all three kids at home, it was like, okay, from 4 to 7, that's our time as a family. We're cooking dinner, I'm helping with homework, we're doing all these things. And then we're playing a board game after dinner, we're cleaning up and all that. 4 to 7 is your completely undivided time. You'd be surprised how much time, like when it's completely undivided and you are focused and we're laughing and you're listening about they're filled up.
Hmm.
And no offense, but that's about all they can handle, a mom. And 3 hours is a lot of good
Yeah.
focused time with everybody, with each other, right? We're all enjoying our time. Now they've got stuff to do, we've got stuff to do. They're hanging out in their room, we're doing whatever, they're going to friends, but we've filled each other up with that time. And to me, that and dinner table and dinner time was always it was an absolute part of our family life growing up and also raising our children. It was a given. That's where we communicated.
Hmm. Yeah, we've said before on other podcasts that saying no to something is saying yes to something else.
Yeah.
So if you say, and saying yes to something is saying no to something else. So when you have that time set aside for your family, like from 4 to 7 or whatever, and you decide to work an extra hour at work, you're saying no to an extra hour with your family. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like you're always
Yeah.
sacrificing somewhere else. And so you had mentioned we have Sheila and I have this kind of big like overarching meeting at the beginning of every year. I'm grateful that I've worked for you for like this is like my fourth year, I think. My first, yeah, it'll be my fourth year working for
Oh my
Victory Pie.
gosh. Oh, that makes me excited.
And every year we've had like this kind of big like let's kickstart the year meeting. And this year you said, I feel like this is my year of no. And
Hmm.
so what brought you to that? What was like the pivotal moment that made you decide, you know what, I gotta start saying no to some stuff?
Because because I'm like squirrel, I'm all over the place. But what really brought me to that was with uh, closing our cafe side down and then our bakery and just taking this break to see what's going to be next for us with Victory Pie. I have a tendency, it's my personality and nature to
Hmm.
fill empty spaces. Hospitality is my gift, my love language. I love it. I love serving people. I love everything about it. And so I will fill my time with that. But in doing that, I will neglect things that need my time and I will
Hmm.
neglect myself
Yeah.
in the name of good and giving to others. And so, and I realized how much of that I do. And in shutting some of those things down and hearing, for me, it was hearing from God saying, take a year, take a year, take a year. And I'm like, take a year for what? It's like, well, maybe if you say no to some things, you'll figure out what, you know? And so saying no was um, really, it was about saying no to the distractions and things to kind of be alone with myself and
Yeah.
figure out what do I want to do. And I think a really big part of that too was for me with Victory Pie and all that we've done and all that we continue to do. It was about my brother. It was about walking out grief. It was about a loss and so many things and a mission to give back in his name. And we did so much of that. We succeeded because of everyone in the communities and everywhere that poured out and gave and ate with Victory Pie and ordered pies and did all the things with us and with all the organizations that we worked with. There was so much of that. It was so exciting and so many things happened. And then now there's this like, okay, what does that look like next? And it's funny because every people will want, I don't mean this to sound bad from people, we all do, right? People will take from you what you will give.
Yeah.
And in closing that down, we were closed for a while before this year came and before the beginning of this year came. And there was a lot of people going, well, I still want this from you. I still want this from you. Can't you just give me that? Could you get this? Could you do this for me? Could you still do this? I still need this from you. Could we get this from you? And I was like, I was wanting to say yes, and in some cases I did. And then I finally was like, you know what? No, I need to say no. No,
Mhm.
no, I can't give you that. Just like we just said about like telling somebody no at an office or whatever. You know what? No, I'm sorry, I can't give that to you right now. That's not the capacity I'm in right now. but it doesn't mean it's a forever no. But right now, no, because I need to focus on what I'm doing next. I need to focus on my health so that when I do come back and when I do bring back what we're going to bring back, I am 1000% ready. I have the energy, I have the health, I have the stamina, I have the mindset, and I have the team and the
Mm,
structure built to bring
mm,
you the best like I did before. Because I ran myself into the ground where I was like shreds of myself that was
mm,
left physically. I had a lot of physical stuff that I put off. So I think saying no was about being healthy, and I'm probably the healthiest I've been in several years,
woohoo.
honestly.
That's
Yay, in
awesome.
a lot of ways, and just taking time. So I think that was the biggest part of the no was kind of learning what we're saying now, how to say no, because
Mm,
I fell into it, starting at a farmer's market, then started into a restaurant. There was just a lot of yeses in growing business, and you don't want to say no to anything because you're trying to grow. You're trying to get people to know that you're there and build your business, and you want to say yes so that they like you and that they you earn their business and all the things. I never said no.
mm,
And I'm like, you know what? A quality yes, if I say yes to you now, it means not only can I do it, but I can do it well. I can't just
yeah.
get by and just do it to get by like in a mediocre way. It means I can really do it. If I tell you yes, I mean my yes.
Yeah.
And that's you want that not only as a consumer but as a friend, as a
Yeah.
family member, as a spouse. If
It's a good
I
feeling.
want my yes to be yes and my no to be no, just like the Bible
Mm,
says.
mm,
To me that's huge. So that's what I think that's my takeaway so far, and I'm really still learning that, and I have to unprocess because for me, I came from a childhood and a world of you never said no. You
mm,
don't say no to authority. It's disrespectful. You don't say no to good works
mm,
because they're good works. And what kind of a person says no to good things and charity and giving of yourself? And if you say no to that, well, that's kind of selfish. Like if you need time for
mm,
you and you're not giving to somebody else, well, that's selfish. So those are the mindsets that I have had, my 50 plus years.
yeah.
And so I'm undoing those mindsets. But not to say this that we don't ever do those things. And sometimes you do weigh it out and go, you know what? Yeah, I can say yes to that. I could put that thing off to next week. It's not that important. It's not going to be the detriment to something else or someone else. And I can say yes. And I think we have to be careful in this culture that we're not saying so many yeses to ourselves that we're forgetting
Yeah.
to meet needs and serve and other things too. There's definitely a balance there, and I want to learn that balance in a healthy way
Yeah.
because I have a different level of time now because I'm an empty nester, and a lot of people too have. Oh, great! Now that your kids are all out, you have more time, right? Can it's been more requests. So can you volunteer? Can you do this? Can you give us this? Can you
Of
do
course.
that? So you got time, right? Your kids aren't home anymore. That's like when moms are home and kids start going to school. You're going to go get it now. You're going to go to work now because now you have to. No, hang
Yeah.
on. You know what I mean? It doesn't always mean that. So
Yeah.
I think we need to be careful in each season of our life,
Yeah.
kind of almost reevaluate our no's and what do they look like.
Yeah. Yeah. Because people will always want to fill your time, right? I mean,
Sure.
your time is a hot commodity. And that's what people pay for.
And at the end of the day, without sounding kind of jaded, uh, they're not going to care what it costs you.
No, of course not.
It doesn't bother them as long as they got their need met.
Right.
It's not going to bother them what it costs. So that's why when you're evaluating what does that look like? Who at the end of my day will be there when
Yeah.
I have nothing?
Yeah.
And those are the things I want to pour my time into. And if I've made time for them and those are healthy things going on in my life, now there's room to say yes.
Well, yeah. And I feel like I read this book like years ago called Boundaries. I think I've read it like three
Mm,
times actually.
yes.
But
Oh, me too.
it's a good book. And I think like my favorite thing about the relationships I have, especially people who have read this book because they started to value saying no and value like the value of boundaries,
hmm
is that I have a handful of friends who I can trust to communicate their boundaries to me.
Yeah.
And my friends can trust me to communicate mine. And so, like, I had a friend just yesterday asked me, like, oh no, did what I just like kind of shared with you or processed with you, did that cross a boundary for you? And I was like, no, it didn't. But also, you can trust me to tell you if it does. And
Right.
so, like, you don't have to tiptoe around burdening me with things because you can trust that I'm going to communicate
Yeah.
when I can't handle something or can't carry something for you. And
Right.
that's like such a relief to have from your friends. Like to be able to
Yeah.
ask somebody for help. Like how many friends have you had or people in your life are you like, oh, I don't want to ask them for that because I know they have a lot going on or I know they have
Right.
like and I don't trust them to tell me no because they're one of those
Right.
people who just takes on everything and I'm
Yep.
going to add this to their plate and it's going to make them sick because
Yeah.
they will say yes to everything. But
Right.
having friends that I know will tell me actually, no, I don't have the space for that. I'm like, oh, thank God. I don't have to
Yeah.
manage your life for you. Love
Right.
to hear
Exactly.
it. That's so
Right.
much better for me than having to figure out what you can hold and what you can't hold, is knowing that the people around me will tell me. I'm like, what a great
Yes.
gift to give to the people around you.
I agree. That's a beautiful thing. And I wish more of us could learn to do that. I think the other thing too that I had to learn is when I do say no, I don't have to have an excuse. I don't have to have a full story and I
Yes.
don't have to give you the rundown of why I just said
Yeah.
no. And I think for me, that was another big one. And I'm even still learning to do that just to say, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm unable to do that for you. Smile
Me too.
and leave it right there. Not because. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
just a no, you know, and it's just that simple. So it's great that you can surround yourself. And I'm looking for and hoping to surround myself with more of those because
Yeah.
I think it is healthy. And I think if we can do that a lot more, I think women, I don't want this to be a statement that men can and women can't, but I think women have a harder time sometimes saying no because we are need meters.
Yeah. People
You know, I
pleasers.
think in nature, yeah, a lot of times. So, but it, like you said, it's good to have girlfriends that you know, and it's not
Yeah.
personal. There's no need to take offense because they said no. It's just, okay, oh, you can't do it. Okay, no worries. I'll
Yes.
figure something else out, you know, just that
And to have
simple.
friends who like aren't
It's
offended by your
refreshing.
no. Like
Yes, it's
you
refreshing.
when you're like, oh, I can't do that. I actually don't have the capacity to do that. And they're
Yeah.
like, wow, love that for you. Love that you said
Yeah.
that. Good for you.
Thanks. Must be nice to be able to just say no. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not
Yeah.
going to lie. In the past, I've been there. I've had some people in like that they said no, and maybe the way they said it was a little, a
Mm.
little different than maybe I would say it, and that's okay. But I did, I wouldn't say it to them, but I'd walk away being like, huh, must be nice to just be able to say no to everything and just live your life the way you, and I'm like, but then hang on a minute. That
They're
was
like, yeah, it is
healthy
nice
for her.
actually.
Okay, jealous much? I had to say to myself. I just like, maybe you ought to think about why that stung because
That's
you
so
can't,
funny.
yeah,
That's
and
so
a little
funny.
work needed to be done there. So, yeah.
And like to your point about like separating time, especially when you're like because you don't work in an office right now, but you've had employees for a long time and like having to set aside time to be like, I can't help you necessarily, or I can't like walk you through this. It's
Yeah.
so interesting. Like I was hanging out with my a really close friend of mine. She has two kids who I'm also very close with. They're 8 and 11,
Mm,
and her 8 year old. He's a boy, and boy, I've noticed this about boys specifically, young boys. They will like kind of narrate what they're doing throughout the day, and they ask for help even when they don't need it. So they'll be like, "Where's my?"
right.
And he's like, "Where's my iPad?" And she's like, I don't know, where did you put it? And he's like, and he really doesn't need her help, but
Right.
like he's just narrating as he's like looking around for this thing. And he's
That's
gonna find
true.
it, and he does. He finds it on his own. But like he asks for help just to talk almost.
Mm,
And she could totally jump in and be like, oh, the last place I saw it is here, and like help him retrace his steps. But he really
right.
doesn't need the help, and he's gonna figure it out. He just wants to
Right.
say it out loud. And I
Right.
know, like when I worked in an office, and I had several, like 6 employees working for me at one time, and there would be these seasons of work where like things would just get really, really busy, and
Mm-hmm.
I was on my computer all for hours and hours a day, and it was so hard when people would come into my office and take me away from what I was looking at. I'd have to like recalibrate every single time, and it
Yes.
would make my workday so much longer. And so there came a point where I would shut and lock my door and put a sign on
Yeah.
the door that was like, "Are you bleeding? Then don't
Yeah.
talk to
Right.
me. Like,
Right.
then I need you to problem solve for the next 6 hours. I need you to go problem solve by yourself." And
Right.
most of the time, they can figure it out. It is more fun to figure out a problem with somebody. And it is sometimes like, especially when you're working for someone, usually
Yeah.
the boss can figure out that problem a little quicker than you can because they've been doing the
Sure.
job longer. But it's like, I hired you to do that. I need you to
Right.
spend time doing that.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Well, and I think too, in relation to probably employees too, but also parenting. And I saw this with my sons. I had three sons, so I can
Mm,
only come from the side of boy mom. But with kids in general, and that is, I think too, and I will say especially with boys, when we do the problem solving for them, we take away wins. We take
mm,
away a win for them to do something on their own, to problem solve, to get through an issue, to critically think. I think we take away the opportunity for them to resolve things
yeah.
and factor that in, and also just instill a sense of confidence, like, hey, I figured it out. They were like, look, I did it. I figured it out.
Mm,
And it's like, that's great. And when we go in there and we do it and we're like, "Ah, just let me do it. Yes, it's easier. Yes, it's probably faster, but who won in that scenario?
mm,
And I
mm,
think we take that away from our kids sometimes when we do that,
yeah.
especially kids, and then also employees, because then you are constantly riddled with the. I realized that too when I had to hire more people to do things, and they were constantly. I was like, oh my gosh, it was like that. What's that Stewie on Family Guy or whatever? Mop, 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 mop. It's like that at work. Mop, mop,
Yeah.
mop. That was one of my brother's favorite, and it was like, why is I had to literally go, why is everybody doing this? What is and I realized because they would come in and be like, Sheila, what do I, and I'd be like, oh, oh, oh. And it made me feel good because I had the answer for everything.
Yeah.
And I went, you know what? Doesn't feel so good to be pulled in a thousand directions. And it was like, you know what, guys? Here you go. There it is.
Yeah.
Figured out. And here's the other thing. This is the hard part. I also had to go, they're probably not going to do it the way I would. Maybe not as thoroughly as I would. Maybe not as good as I would. But if especially their first time through or their first or their second time through, they did it well and they got it, then yay, they're on their way. I think we have an expectation too sometimes as parents and employers. We expect perfection. We expect our level of excellence with somebody getting something the first time, and there's no way they can. There's no way. And we don't let go of okay, good job. And not that everybody gets a trophy. Oh, yay. But it was like, hey, that's great for your first try. That's awesome. Great. You got it. Now we're going to hone in on making it like this. Perfect.
Yeah.
But we don't. And then now they're like, okay, I got that one down. Now I can learn the next thing. But because we don't say no and we take them all in, I
Mm,
think
yeah.
that's one of those things. And it's funny that all these are connected to not just saying no, but like you said, they gain confidence, they gain new
Yeah.
skill sets
Yeah.
because we said no. And I don't
Mm,
think we give no enough credit for how to build that in people, and we
mm,
don't have that. And I've seen, having been an employer in of this new young generation, they're frozen, and I mean, I hate it, frozen in fear of not getting it perfect the first time. And I think because
yeah.
they always see perfection on a screen that's coming at them 2 seconds, they don't see all the failed attempts that
Yeah.
that went into that perfect whatever. And then they see now the boss just showed them, and they're like, okay, now do it. And they're like, oh, I'm not gonna get it like that. And it's like, no, it's okay. But I think, but they didn't come to the table having failed and had enough no's and having
Mm,
had enough tries and had enough. I don't think they have. Sorry.
yeah.
I mean, and I think we can set ourselves and our kiddos up if we have kids, and employees up if we have employees, by saying no to succeed even better
Yeah.
than just a lot of us barking the answers all the time.
Mm,
And imagine the peace you would have had. You probably had. Imagine if that was the norm and not, you were so frustrated you had to lock the door and say,
right.
my mom used to tell me this when we went to school, because I came from that generation.
Mm,
If you're not bleeding or missing a limb, don't call me. from school.
Yeah.
Like the school better not call me, you know?
Right.
And literally that was her thing. If you're not bleeding or missing a limb. And it's like, okay, so what did you do? You just muddled through and you just did it, you know? But that's the thing. Imagine if every day you went into work and you knew you were going to have the time to do what you needed, the peace to do what you needed, not the interruptions. And when you left work, work could stay at work.
Yeah.
Imagine how many more people would go home better for themselves, more ready to be at home, more ready and fulfilled to be like, you know what, cooking dinner sounds good tonight, or let me pick up something, or let's do a movie night. Not, I can't do that tonight. I've got to finish this because it didn't get done.
Hmm.
You know, I've
Yeah.
got a friend. I have a friend that's a teacher, and she's saying that all the time. She's telling me it doesn't get done. I said, how in the world? You're already. She's at the school 10 hours a day. Not even the 8 that the kids are there, but the 10. And then she comes home and her weekends are full of reports. Her things are full of reports. And I'm like, how in the world is this happening? You
Yeah.
know, obviously they're short staffed, but it's like because all these people constantly want something else, want something else, want something else. I think there has to be a, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
find what that no is. And I know we have to be careful because I can't just be like, sorry to your boss. That's not happening today. But
Right.
I think there's a lot of things we can say no to that if we really looked at them,
Yeah.
if you looked at your day. So I had a business coach do this for me, and this was a huge eye opener for me.
Hmm.
And this is great for a mom, even a empty nester like me right now. Say I'm home and I don't really, I don't ever want to say we're not doing anything. You're working out of your home, whatever that looks like, maintaining your house, whatever, charities, things. If you look and just record for a day, if you feel like you're not getting your things done, record every minute of your day. Like, oh,
Hmm.
answered a phone call, spent 30 minutes, texted a friend, scrolled through Instagram, did this, had my coffee read. You will watch how much
Wow.
time is, and I had to turn these into a business coach for
Oh
a
my,
week
I'm
at a
gonna write
time.
that down.
It was eye opening
Oh my
how
gosh.
much time I was busy,
Yeah.
air quotes, and I was not busy. And
Yeah.
I could whittle about no joke, 3 to 4 hours of my day was like, well, there it is. There's the time
Wow.
I don't have.
Wow.
You don't realize even, walking to go get a glass of water. And then I know myself, I'm like distracted. Oh, I decided to water the plants. Oh, now I decided to, and then I didn't go back to the project I was on. You mean you
Yeah.
realize, and that, and then another thing for me, because there are a lot of people who have like, they get struggle with time structures, right?
Hmm.
And having had boys and homeschooling, I did this too. And I never understand why teachers took away, it's like an epidemic as far as I'm concerned that they're taking not only recess away from kids, but specifically boys because they have a tendency to be more active. But it's boys and girls, doesn't matter. And I was an active person. I didn't do good sitting, and I always got in trouble in class for talking, and I was always moving because, again, hospitality was my thing. But it's like set a timer. So when I had my kids, we would
Hmm.
do schoolwork for 30 minutes and then they would go outside and jump on the trampoline for 10 to 15, whatever the timer was. And it was like, go get it out of your system. So
Hmm.
even when you're at work, set your work for, 45 minutes and then take 10 minutes to go walk to the water cooler, or go talk to somebody in the break room, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
and then do your thing and you work those throughout your day instead of scrolling on your phone at your desk and then 45 minutes later you're running late. You see what I mean? I think those are
Hmm.
temporary fixes to what we're doing.
Wow.
Setting timers is a big deal. And then I get my job done. It's focused. It's like I have 30 minutes to answer my emails. You know what I do? I put my phone on airplane mode so I don't even hear it buzz. And I'm like, 30 minutes, go. It's
Yeah.
done. And now that project is over. I don't have to keep, oh, I got to go finish those emails. Okay, I got to go finish those, or
Right.
even if it's with your kids, hey, it's 30 minutes of uninterrupted. We're rolling around on the floor, we're playing Candyland, board games, we're
Yeah.
doing whatever it is. It's the same thing, put it throughout your days. And if it's your work as an employer, for me too, I had to put those hours like, okay, I'm going to go out on the floor. I'm going to go talk to customers during
Yeah.
this busy lunch. And you know what? You guys got to handle the back of the house. I'm not here for you today. You know your job, do it. I'll be out front with our customers today.
Act like I'm
And
not here. Like,
exactly. And I needed that. I needed because there was a lot of times I missed my touch points with my customers because I was so busy putting out fires, not literal ones, but in the
right.
back. sometimes, that girl could get hot. But
Mhm.
yeah, but wanting to be out there. So whatever you're doing in life right now, this applies. Say no to something, like you said, to say yes to something else, but also be careful, put your time limits on it. But after saying that again, I probably should be doing it now. Monitor your time and see why you're not getting to where you want to be or what you're doing.
Mm, mm.
I think we'd be shocked.
Yeah, I like thinking, right? I wrote it down. I was like, I need to do that with my time. I need to just take a day and
Right.
realize what I spend time doing.
Which, funny enough, in thinking about this and talking about healthy nose, one of the things, we recorded and then whatever, it got deleted somehow. So we're kind of doing it again. And I love it because it's almost honing it better. But another thing that I don't think we think enough of is saying no. And that when it comes to our finances, we talk a lot about no with time, boundaries, finances, things like that, which is another one. So that concept of, writing down where's your time to see where it's going and our money, to see where it's going. We all don't want to do that. But I think one of the things I've learned is I've kind of gotten ticked off because I can throw my money away at a bunch of little yeses, like, yeah, that feels good. Or,
Yeah,
you're stuck and you don't feel like you're getting that vacation you need or deserve or that time off and you've got to build it up and it's 6 more months before you can get that vacation that you need or before you've accrued 4 more days off and get a long weekend. So what do we do sometimes? We do that click and we buy something to get that dopamine fix of I
right.
rewarded myself and these other little things. But you know what? Like someone just took your hard-earned money and instead of putting it toward that thing you're pushing for, that
Yeah.
that dream trip, that whatever. And I think it's another one. So if we look at all the little ways we're spending and that we're giving our yes of our hard-earned money, we work our butts off for this stuff. And
Right.
then we don't think about what we're saying yes to in the name of convenience. I think that's another no. That's a
Yeah.
big one as you look at, and even my husband and I, we're coming up on 30 years this year of being married, and we're like, okay, we want a big trip, right? And
Mhm.
we still have to save even our season of life. We're kind of young empty nesters. We're in our early 50s.
Yeah.
So, we're still building the nest egg for retirement. We're not close yet. But so we're like, okay, we save for our trips and we love to just pay cash for everything because we like to enjoy ourselves and not go blow it big and then we come back and now there's this heavy bill to pay later, right? So we're
Mm.
like, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to say, so it's little things like, no to the daily coffee drive through, or so it means I got to set up my coffee when I go out. Or, I had a friend years ago, she loved her morning coffee, you know, at Starbucks. And it was like, okay. But she liked a fluffy one. And they've got drink makers now that do all this that are even better. But it's like, you know, to pay $60 for a really good little espresso maker
Mm.
is way cheaper than the 6 to 8, sometimes 9. And one of them was 15, depending on how many pumps and large you get and all that
Yeah,
drinks in these places
for sure.
a day. So she was like, I don't spend that much. I said, really? Let's hang on. Go get your bank account and take a look. And I encourage people to do this goes along with nose. Go look at your bank account and see how many times you've used where those little things, those little places, whether it's an Amazon buy or it's a coffee
Yeah.
or a eat out lunch or whatever that thing is. What is that added to? She was shocked. She was $350 a month just on her drinks.
Woo,
That wasn't what she bought for the office. That wasn't what she brought home to the
crazy.
kids. And she was like, "What?" And she was like, "You know what? That ticks me off because that's a new purse, that's an outfit, that's a weekend
Yeah.
with her girlfriends. That's
Yeah.
a lot of things when you
Yeah.
look at it like that, and that's a month. Now multiply that times 12. You
Hmm.
got yourself a vacation,
Wow.
the one you think you can't take.
Right.
So when you say yes to something, you say no to something else. And
Yeah.
I think it goes with our finances too. I think that's really important to say no in our finances to things
Mhm.
that aren't serving us because if it's going to bring me stress later, why say yes right now? Whatever
Hmm.
that thing is, even if it's a temporary fix, whatever that looks like. So I just think
Wow.
that's just as important as no in people and boundaries and work and all the other things.
Yeah. My next question was, do you have any like daily or weekly rhythms? And I know we've talked about this before. My fiance and I have started a weekly Sabbath, and it's
Hmm.
on Mondays because he's off Mondays. And so we started doing that per recommendation of a guy, a political guy that I watch online. But talking about like your body was
Hmm.
made for rest. Like you
Yes.
cannot function without rest. And it's
Yeah.
in everything. Like the earth was made for rest. Like
Right.
you need to let the ground rest. You need to
Right.
before you like plow it. You know what I mean? Like you
Right.
have to give rest to everything around you or else it doesn't function properly. And
Right.
like your body will demand rest. You don't have a choice.
Absolutely.
So if you think that you can get by and just be like, oh, I'll just keep going, I'll just keep going, you've experienced, Sheila, like your health will decline and will force you on your back. You will be in
It will.
bed sick if you don't give yourself rest and you'll compromise. Like we've noticed that since starting our Sabbath. So our Sabbath starts Monday morning when we wake up and then ends Monday when we go to sleep. So
Hmm.
all day Monday, I put my phone away. I do not check my phone all day. And the people who are in my life know, like, you've
Yep.
texted me on Mondays and be like, don't text me back. And
Yeah. You probably won't even see this.
yeah,
Yeah. But
so they just like don't expect me to
right.
connect them on Mondays. And then I don't watch TV. I don't plug into technology at all. I like spend the day before our Sabbath doing the dishes, doing the laundry, cleaning the house,
Right.
grocery shopping, cooking food, so that when Monday rolls around,
Yeah.
I don't have to cook, I don't have to clean, and I know
Right.
like there's been one or two Mondays where I didn't do that, and there was dishes in the sink and there was laundry to be folded, and I had to just let it sit for a Monday. It was agonizing for me. I was like, this is so not restful for me. I have to
Yeah.
prepare for it.
Yeah.
But if you don't take this day of rest, if you which is like so crazy because God was like, hey, do this. And then we
Hmm.
said, no, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna work. And all throughout the week, you will compromise and take rest where you can get it. And it like you go and you eat out because you don't feel like cooking. And you go and get yourself a little treat because you feel like you deserve it. And you probably do because your body is like, please just give me a dopamine hit. Please just give me some
Yeah. I
rest because I'm
need something.
exhausted.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, what do the
Yes.
rhythms of rest or the rhythms of no in your life look like now?
I agree. I love that. We do also take a Sabbath, and it
Mm,
depends. So my husband's on the fire department, so he has a crazy schedule. So he'll be on
yeah,
those 24 ons, 24 offs. So sometimes we don't always have a set day, but we set a day, whatever that looks like in our week,
yeah,
to have that Sabbath. And I'll be honest with you, there's some days our weeks do not connect because of business, and his is different than mine.
yeah,
And because we don't have kids at home, that's okay. But for the most part, we try to coordinate that together. And it does. Sometimes it looks like a random weird Thursday. And it's like, I'm
yeah.
not doing it today.
Love
Um,
that.
but I think we need to rest. And I'm like, if the God of the universe took a day, it wasn't
Mm,
because he needed to, it's because he was showing us that
yeah.
even in all power, in all knowledge, in all wisdom, in all everything, he's like, hey, rest.
Mm,
If he said and showed us how to do it, who do we think we are not to be like, oh, yeah, but hang on, I'm going to power through, like you said, and do this. But it's like, we're also, to me, that's an area of faith. And here's why,
mm,
and why we need to say yes to that Sabbath and no, because what it's saying is you leave room for God. I got all the things done I could get done. And this is where I believe we can get caught up in thinking we need to do more all the time. I did. I'm going to speak for myself. And that is, I didn't get it done and I needed to. And I got that done. You know why I didn't get it done? Because I let all those other things get in my way
yeah,
and distract me. And, and I didn't say no to them. And so that come the day I was supposed to rest, I had to get all these other things done. Well, it's because I didn't say no all week. And
yeah,
that's on me. And I used to get mad. I'll do you one better. I used to get irritated because I read a lot of books and listened to a lot of podcasts and things in business. And I try to listen to a lot of women because I feel like as women we balance things differently, and a lot of times we are the caregivers. We tend to be the majority of the people running the household, even if we're working inside or outside the house. We're shifting kids around because men are have that more traditional role, working more, providing. Not always, but if it's the case, and my husband was at the time, and I'm just kind of like, well, that's easy because men could say no all the time because they've got this person always taking care of everything.
Yeah.
But if I'm the one taking care of everything and I'm saying, I don't get to say no to all the, but then I'm like, hold on a minute, hold on before you do that.
Hmm.
Start thinking through. And I think what we don't do too is, hey, you know what, honey, um, I can't get done what I need so we can have that day off. Could you go ahead and take Thursday? Could you make sure you're off by 5 and take them to practice? Because I've got to get this thing done so that come Sunday, like you said, the dishes are done, the groceries are bought, the things are done. I think if we really evaluated our weeks, we could do that. And how much more rest would that bring? So, my husband and I, even now, we did it with our kids at home. We had a Sabbath. A lot of times it was Sunday. And I'm going to say this, and this will not be popular, but I'm saying it anyway.
Come on.
It's okay. Working at your church is not a Sabbath.
Come on.
Working on staff at church, you work the kids thing, you're there all morning, you're running the kids. That is not your Sabbath. There's a misnomer that Sunday is a Sabbath, and then now you go home, and what are you? You're exhausted. Your day is spent, and now you're getting ready for your week. That is not your Sabbath. If you happen to work at a church or you're a volunteer at church, that's work, my friend. That is work. That is not your Sabbath. So if you volunteer at your church and you work at the kids ministry or the whatever, or the youth or the greeting or the, you know what? That's not your Sabbath. So take it on another day, on your Saturday. And if you do that and that's work, that's okay. Maybe your Sabbath starts with Sunday to Monday or Saturday to Saturday or Friday to Saturday, whatever that looks like for you in your work week.
Mm.
That is not time off. That is not absolute rest and room for God. And you're right. I used to wear as a badge of honor. About twice a year, I crash really hard. But you know what? I crashed so hard, my body would not move. I couldn't get it to move. And like my kids, I couldn't get out of bed. I had to stay in bed 2 to 3 days. My husband had to bring things to me. My kids, I couldn't help my kids
Yep.
because I said yes to everything until my body said, no, you can't. No,
Mhm.
you cannot. And I had to say, nope. And a lot of entrepreneurs, I think a lot of the people that are driven like that have a tendency to do that. We're like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I
Right.
used to say that. And it's like, that's not cool.
It's gonna be sooner
And
rather than later if you.
yeah, how soon you want to get there? But it's like, but we do. So now we are incorporating that. And I'm realizing too, I'm like, I'm getting my stuff done and not allowing those distractions because at night, my husband and I, it's like we want a certain kind of time for ourselves in the evening. And we'll discuss what that time looks like. Well, what is your schedule? What are you doing? Well, I'm doing this. And I'm having more of those evenings where I can feed my health and my needs. Like if it's take a bath, read a book, have a cup of tea, do whatever, and say to him, hey, I'm going to do this for about an hour. It's my quiet time. Okay, great. He'll go find something to do. Or but we've set those up now, and no means no. And funny enough, my husband is having a harder time than me with a Sabbath because he thinks that means, oh, mow the lawn. Because he puts his headphones in and he finds that enjoyable. I'm like, I know you enjoy it, but that's work, my friend. That's not you. He has as much of a hard time resting and saying no. And he's learning to. And it's funny because we're almost like enjoying it. It's almost like being a kid again where you have no responsibility.
Hmm.
And how many of us would love that feeling again where it's like, oh my gosh, I could say no. And it might mean going to a movie for us because we don't watch a lot of TV we don't do a lot of certain things. I don't,
Yeah.
media wise. So to me, going to a movie is fun. It means, or it might mean brunch and hanging out at the park, or it might mean a lot of different things. Um, and if you're home all the time, getting out in nature and maybe going on a hike or walking or just
Yeah.
being out by a lake for the day or whatever that looks like to you, and bringing, like you said, your books and games, or that might be what it is. Pack the picnic the night before, not the morning of, and be like, we're on our way and there's nothing. We're unplugged. We do that. And I'm like, I love it. And we're doing more of it. And it's almost like, it's kind of like being a kid, those things we always, oh, must be not, you don't know how good you have it. You know, Adulting sucks. Man, if I do anything to go back and not have those responsibilities. Well, guess what? You don't have to have them once a week.
Hmm.
You can choose that for your life. And you're so much better because you probably found this. you're so much rest and you're like, I'm like ready to get back to work.
Right.
I'm
Right.
ready to get on it because I got to get all my things done because I get to do this again next week. And I think we forget as adults, we get to design our lives. We get to
Yeah.
design our
Yeah.
destiny. We get to design it. We've gotten so stuck in what we think we owe everybody or what we think we have to do. And this is not popular, mom and dad. I'm going to tell you this because I have lived it. Your
Mm.
kids do not have to be in every sport and they don't have to overlap. Think about what you're doing to your kids. I'm sorry, it's not popular. What you're doing to your kids physically as their bodies are still developing and you're crossing over sports
Mm.
season after season after season. I've had so many friends that have done this. And by the time their kids get to where they're actually now going to go actually play that sport for a scholarship, they're burnt out and they're done and they don't do it. The
Mm.
kid's like, I'm finished. And
Yeah.
it's like, because they never got that rest.
Yeah.
And neither did you, traipsing everywhere, dropping off. I'm not saying sports are bad. My kids all played them, but here's what we did.
Yeah.
Each one picked what they wanted to do, and we said, as a family, we'll go support you in that one sport. That's what you're going to do this season. This season, you pick it, great. That's what you're doing. Great. You pick that one. You pick that one. You pick that one. Ours happened to pick different things. We had football, golf, and basketball.
Mm.
We had
Yeah.
soccer. So everybody chose what they enjoyed and it worked out. And if we had to divide and conquer, it wasn't insanity and it wasn't. And if somebody wasn't doing a sport for a season, they were doing a musical instrument or something. And some kids don't like sports, but they had healthy activities. But it was like, okay, breaks, but we weren't, in tournaments all weekend long. Our weekends were gone. And I'm watching these haggard parents and these haggard kids. And I will say this at the end of the day, for what?
For
And
what?
I get scholarships and I get things, but when you look at the statistics of what the actual, ability, I'm sorry, I know your kid is a prodigy,
Yeah.
but when you look at the end of the day, what it will actually bring,
Yeah.
and when you've got them in everything, jack of all trades, master of none, they can't be good in one. So
Yeah.
pick one and be good at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hone your skill. You can't be a master of everything. That you're you're setting them up to fail. To
Yeah.
think that they can be excellent in all of them. No, they can't. Sorry, nobody can.
Yeah. And like,
So,
I mean, the pipeline from gifted, talented kids who got all A's and did all the sports and were
yep,
constantly praised to anxious wreck of adults who spend all their money on therapy is
expectation.
like for real. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they are tired, tired kids. And I think like taking a Sabbath for us, like it's a spiritual discipline for sure because
Uh-huh.
none of us spend our days with silence, like just with
Nope.
no sound happening, with no podcast running, with no music in the background,
Nope.
with no TV show on the background. Like we don't spend time just with nothing happening. When was the
Being
last time you
alone.
were bored? When was the last time
Oh
you
my
had
gosh.
just your thoughts? Like that's what we
Yes.
found is every Sabbath we're bored out of our minds. We're like, what the heck do we do with our time? So we started playing board games. We got like decks of
Yeah.
cards.
Yeah.
And like we're getting married, so we registered for board games because I'm like,
That's
this is I guess what we
awesome. I
do. We
love
started playing
that.
chess. Like
Yeah.
because we're bored. And I'm like, I can't remember the last time that I just had space with nothing to do. We also, I mean, everybody's Sabbath, I think, can look a little different. It's up to you to
Sure.
define what rest looks like. But like for us, we try to not spend any money on our Sabbath.
Hmm.
So like I don't drive. I'm like, I don't want to go anywhere. I
Sure.
want to stay at my house. I want to spend no money. I want to not have to cook anything. Sometimes I
Yeah.
bake or I cook because I enjoy it. But
Right.
like I want to have enough food that I can just eat.
Yeah.
I want to like not have technology buzzing in the background and I want to be outside. I want to spend some amount of time in direct sunlight, like
Yeah.
with my feet on the bare ground. And it's
Yeah.
so good for my soul, but it does like it threatens the parts of me, the recovering people pleaser in me, because
Hmm.
it is a day full of zero feedback that I'm being helpful or that I'm meeting somebody's needs or that I'm like solving the world's problems. Like there's no there's none of that going on.
Right.
And it challenges that in me. Like it makes me uncomfortable. I'm like, I feel the need to go fix something. And
Right.
I have to like sit with that uncomfortability for 24 hours at least.
Yeah. I find that interesting because I totally agree with that. I hear that and feel that. And I think for me too, being alone in that quiet, and I love that same kind of silence, which is what we do sometimes. And my husband and I, just last week on our Sabbath, we had a fire. We have a fire pit in our back, and prior to the fire was already ready. All we had to do was light it, right? Everything was already built, the wood was already there. And sometimes we just sit in silence. We don't talk to each other. We just sit, we watch the fire crackle. And I think for me, the other hard part, because of my past, my upbringing, is being alone with my own thoughts.
Ooh.
My not even just people pleasing, but it's like the self deprecation and what I haven't done and how did I fail today and what things are I doing, and then I'm sitting there going, no, and I'm realizing instead I'm because what I do is I fill my time with distractions, and that's where I haven't said no in my past. Well, I say yes to everything because a distraction means I don't have to be alone with my thoughts. Because if
Mm.
I had to be alone with my thoughts, I might have to feel some things that I don't want to feel right now. And I might have to walk through some things I don't have to want to walk through right now. But in doing that, it's good because what I've realized now, replacing my thoughts with, because now I've had so much time for those thoughts. It's like, and renewing our minds. I love what the Bible says about renewing our minds. And um, so as soon as those thoughts start to come in my mind, I'm like, you know what I do? I take three things. What are three things that went well today? What are three things that went good today? And instead, I instantly am like, you know what? I did this. Oh, I finished reading that chapter I wanted to read. I got to sleep in till I woke up. No alarm clocks, no nothings, no whatever. What are those three things today that went well? And so for me, just that time, downtime can mean, um, and for some people, that can be a scary and a lonely place, that kind of that, and so that can be a hard thing. But I think when we don't take the time to do that, and maybe that's why God told us to take a Sabbath, when we don't, all we do is put off the inevitable. We put off it doesn't go away. You can mask it for a while, but the repercussions of not handling it are gonna pop up in all the other areas: frustration, resentment, busy, finances. It's gonna pop up somewhere. Uh, but we don't have to look at it like that because it has a different face. And so I think so that's a good one, that Sabbath, and that no, and finding what those are. And some people, like, because I know, like, you have like the most incredible beautiful voice, and music is a thing in your world, and so for you that might be like quieting that down for you is quiet. And for me, I music fills me and
Yeah.
gives me energy and brings me. But what I do find a lot of, I am finding a lot more, I love music that's just instrumental.
Mm.
So on my days off, or when I want to just have peace time or reading, I don't put words to it because then I think, then my mind starts getting active like that. So I just do instrumental music. And for me, that's like, running through a little field. It feels like, to me, it's like just this background going on. And for me, that's peace, and that's just like joy, and that's like fun and fulfillment for me. So,
Yeah.
like you said, I love, it's like, I would encourage people listening to this podcast, like, write down the things that, write your list of what, if money and time were no object, right? I love that, starting a sentence with that. And you didn't have to say yes to anything else but yourself. What's the things that bring you joy? Write those down.
Yeah.
Great. Now, once a week, you don't have to do them all. Take the day and start incorporating those things now. And ask your kids. We did this too when we did Sabbath. Guys, what does that look like for you? What would a day of fun mean to you? What would rest mean? What is fun? And to them, there was even times it's fun. It's like, it means having pizza delivered, because we didn't do that because I was a stay-at-home mom. We made everything, right? We cooked everything and we watched our budget. To them, it was like somebody else serves us for a day because we were doing a lot of serving and things. So it was like, cool, DoorDash, make that your thing for the week.
Sure.
Let somebody bring food your way. I mean, make fun for our kids, whatever it
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
and whatever that looked like, or whatever that could be, and it might mean that, but incorporate your kids and let them start to become part of this. I will say this, I've watched my kids. Some do it better than others, but they all do it to some degree. They do this in their lives because we
Mhm.
incorporate it in ours. They do it in their lives. And my son, who says no really well, he is probably the best at taking a Sabbath.
Wow.
When he says he has a Sabbath, he has a Sabbath.
Yeah.
And he won't even take my call.
Mhm.
It's like,
You're like,
I
I know
love
your
my
mother.
mama, but yes, I'm like, I'm your mom. But it's funny because like you, it's like he'll be like, hey, it's my week. Oh, my day off is this. And I know that's his Sabbath. His day
Yeah.
off is his Sabbath. I don't bug him on it either. I don't sit there and go, I know you're off, but I need you to answer this.
Yeah.
That's not fair to him.
Mm.
Leave that alone.
The two thoughts that came to mind is like, people with young kids or who've had young kids, we've all experienced the temper tantrum, right? I don't have kids, but I taught preschool for a minute.
Oh
I've
yeah.
seen my fair share of temper tantrums. I've seen my fair share of temper tantrums in adults.
Oh
But
yeah.
but when your kid, is throwing themselves on the grocery store floor and screaming at the top of their lungs and flailing around like they're possessed, it runs out, right? They
Right.
get tired. It runs out. And they can't
Yep.
do that forever. They
Right.
will get tired. And I think that a lot of us have learned to cope with our own
Oh.
internal temper tantrum by saying
Hmm.
yes to everything. We've learned
Yeah.
to silence the constant slew of anxious thoughts and
Yep.
fears and self deprecation and
Sure.
question marks by filling our time, filling every moment with, oh, well, I can't solve that problem, but I can do this. I'm going to do this thing. And so we
Right.
just cope. And a Sabbath is scary. Taking time of silence in your week is scary at first
Yep.
because it is a day of, oh no, nothing can distract me from this onslaught of thoughts. And if you have never taken space in your adult life to just have silence or just have solitude, it will feel like that at first.
Hmm.
It will feel like this temper tantrum comes out of you. That's
Yeah.
like there it all is. There's all the anxiety, all the fear, all of
Right.
the self criticism. It'll all come out at once. I promise it will run out if you give
Hmm.
it space to just like flush itself out. It will
Hmm.
run out, and then you will be the first Sabbath I took. I didn't listen to any music, and part of that is just that music just stimulates my brain, and I
Right.
like that. I've spent so much of my time in music. It fills my brain space up,
Right.
and so it's also a coping for me. And so
Hmm.
just to turn it off was like felt like there was this screaming in my brain of all of these thoughts. It was like I couldn't. I was thinking my to-do list. I'm thinking of all my fears. I'm thinking of all the things that I said wrong this week or this year or the
Right.
past 30 years. And it was really, really, really loud for the first probably 4 hours. And it was
Hmm.
hard. I
Right.
had to fight against myself to fill every moment of my time with
Right.
something to distract from that. But after about 4 hours, it got quiet. It was like the screaming in my head got tired
Hmm.
and was like, I lost my voice. And I was like, good, here we are.
I
Like,
love that analogy.
take a
Yeah.
minute.
Hmm.
You can handle you. And
Hmm.
I know that you've learned to cope for you probably your whole life. I know I've learned to cope for my whole life
Right.
with this incessant screaming in my head. You can handle it and it
Right.
will get quiet if you give it space. Like, I think a lot of times, like, we try to just avoid the screaming so that we don't have to address it. But it will calm down if you just give it the attention it deserves. Um,
Agreed.
And I think the other thought I have was like, we have a lot of maybe young entrepreneurs listening to this. And
Hmm.
right when you start that business, like they're probably listening to this going, yeah, right. Take a day off, a whole
Yeah.
day, 24
Well,
hours.
easy for you to say. I
Yeah.
used to think that too. That business coach that I spent time with, I actually said that to her in a
Mhm.
training. And she shut me down so fast. I'm like, easy for you to say, you're a millionaire now. Oh, I only work 20 hours a week. And I said, she's like, whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah.
Like, and, and you're right. I love that. And I do want to encourage anybody because that's the season I'm in now. And I'm going, okay, I'm going to, I'm doing something now with what I'm doing in business and we're coming back. But how can I build it better based on what I know now that I didn't know then? And I
Yeah.
would encourage young entrepreneurs, make it part of your business plan. I wish that business plans had this factored into it. And I don't think we do it enough. And that is factor in your day off a week.
Yeah.
Because if you do not, your business cannot withstand the long haul. You cannot build it. It will take its toll physically, emotionally, spiritually, and financially on you
Yeah.
at some point. And that one day is not going to make or break your business financially. There's time, there's rest. That's the other thing. You know what it tells? You know what it tells the people that you're in business with?
Mm.
You're healthy. You take time for you.
Yep.
It's like, whoa, they don't have to be grinding it and they're doing that well. And they're doing it. It also gives them confidence and you confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important. These young entrepreneurs that think that you have to, because I was one. I thought that I had to keep, it's just a little bit of time now and I'll get it on the back end. I'll get it on the back end. No, you won't,
Mm-hmm.
because now you're setting a standard for yourself and everybody around you. And now it's a lot harder to undo than it is to set it up that way from the
Mm-hmm.
get go, to set that system up, set those boundaries. It's like everything, like relationships or whatever. You let somebody get
Yeah.
away with something, then you try to undo it. That's a lot harder than going, nope, this is how this works. These are our
Right.
standards. And we had it too, even in our work with Victory Pie. Sundays were off. We were closed Sundays and Mondays because Sunday, nobody worked. Everybody had a Sunday off, no matter
Mm.
what. And for us, that was my day off. That was my Sabbath. And then Mondays is when I got back and we did prep work in the restaurant and everything else. So I didn't only close one day a week so that we could prep. Nope, it was two.
Yeah.
And that wasn't, and people didn't like it, but sorry. Do you want me to serve you well? Do you want the best? Then
Yeah.
I need to be rested. My family needs me. And then now I can give you the best. Not only that, you've got the freshest veggies because I just chopped them
Yeah.
today, not 2 days ago,
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to be said in that too. Yeah. So young entrepreneurs, build it in to your business plan.
Yeah.
Learn how to run your business on 6 days, not seven.
Well, it's so funny because like a lot of entrepreneurs, they part of the reason that you start your own business is because you want to work for yourself. Most people don't, you don't start when you're 15 working for yourself. We've all like grinded and like worked
Mm-hmm.
at, a restaurant or whatever. Like
Sure.
we've all had those jobs. But you pick to run your own business so that you can be your own boss. But if we're being honest, you're probably the worst boss you've ever had. Like
Yeah.
if any other boss that I worked for was like, you got to work 7 days a week for 10 hours a day, I'd be like, you're high, dude. You couldn't pay
I'm
me enough
like
money
10.
in the world. Yeah, you couldn't
I
pay
was
me enough
working
money.
16. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're right. I was working, and again, sitting down and looking, and I've worked with different levels of coaches throughout the length of my business. At one point, when I got to my breaking point, we sat down and we calculated the hours I was working, literally working. Again, clock your hours, see what you're doing. I was putting in 108 hours a week.
Dude, no.
Okay, they were like, even they were like, whoa, 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 what? And it was like, okay, stop. You need to look at what that's doing. And even that, but I will say this, there's a lot of entrepreneurs doing that. And depending on what your industry is, it's this. It's okay, hang on, stop. That's where for me the realization came in. There's a lot of things that other people can do that you can duplicate, hire those out because of the time. And I think that's where, somebody wants to get into, that's where you do need a coach or a consultant going, okay, help me figure out which of those things I can and can't do. Because it's hard sometimes to um, let go of which things do I let go of that are good and which things
Yeah.
should I hang on to and how do I do that in business? And there comes a point where you do. So I think that's a learning experience. It's not just sometimes you don't know where or how to do that. And I didn't, so I had to find somebody who did to help me. And that's a good place to be. And I had no idea I was putting in that kind of time, but you're right. You're like your worst boss. You wouldn't say, "No, there's no time for breaks. No, you don't get to eat today."
Right.
What do you mean go to the bathroom? don't drink any more water. And it's like, that's
Right.
what I was doing to myself. It's
Right.
like, seriously? I'd be like, no. I think the other misnomer is this. We have gotten in a mindset, I think, as a culture that somehow two things. If you are in the 9 to 5 world, that there's 9 to 5. But
Mm,
now we've added all these other things on and people aren't getting it done, or they're working 8 to 6, or the thing, or that if it doesn't fit to 9 to 5, it's too much. You're not doing it. And it's like,
mm,
hold on a minute. And again, like I said, even at offices and things, we could get distracted by people and things. Who said it's 9 to 5? We didn't raise our kids this way, and I'll tell you why. Because you work 6 days a week and you rest one. What does that mean? For us, again, we had boys. So as a man, you're going to work and have a job someday. Your wife may or may not work outside the home. Whatever you two decide on for your life is your thing. You may or
mm,
may not have children. I don't know what that's going to look like for you. However, this is going to always look this way. When you're done with that job, you come home and you have another job. Your job
mm,
doesn't end. It's called your relationship, your spouse, your home, your kids, helping cook and clean, even if it's for yourself. So to think that that's the end of your day and now you're not doing anything else, I think we've set our own selves up to fail and kind of feel like failures because we didn't get it all done in that time. And it's like,
right.
no, there's another job to be done. But when you set yourself up to succeed in both of those, whether that's
Mm,
meal prepping, convenience things, foods, having stuff done, and sorry, I very much believe your kids, but that's a whole nother podcast. We found a good, successful thing, but your kids should be a part of that. And you do a disservice if you don't have your kids be a part of that. That's meal planning, cooking, cleaning, all that. Because when they get in the real world, never were my sons going to come home, kick off their shoes, turn on the TV, and shake their cup and ask for a drink. Oh no,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No. Someday your wife might have a kid and she's going to need your help. You know, baby,
Mhm,
you're going to have to provide. You're going to have to help cook meals. You're going to have to share the duties. What does that look like at the end of the day? How do you set that up?
mm,
And if we don't teach now, we don't. And I think even if you're single, even if you're not in that position, you still have two jobs. That's the one that makes your money. And when you come home, running your home, whatever that looks like, your life, your world, and setting that up is part of that work.
mm,
And I think we need to be careful because sometimes we feel like that's work at home.
yeah.
And it is, but how can we set that up so that we're only doing that those 6 days a week? We're running that function, right? Of
Yeah.
what running a household, even if it's our own one person household, that's still a household. And how are you setting that up
Yeah.
so that it's successful and that it feeds you the way you want it to, and that it's all the things you need it to be at the end of how you make your money day.
Yeah.
There's how you make your money day, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. And then there's a your world day. And that
Yeah.
is all in a 6 day work week. And then there's your rest day. And I don't think we put enough emphasis on those coming together. And what
Yeah.
does that look like as entrepreneurs?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not your whole life. Yeah. Or it can't be your
No,
whole life.
right.
Mm. Well, we are about an hour and 15 into this
Yeah, a little over.
podcast.
This is
Want
a
to
good
give
one.
us a Sheila, what's a piece of parting wisdom, parting advice that you would give to the young people out there who are
Mm.
trying to say no in their lives and in their businesses?
I would say go grab yourself a cup of coffee, tea, whatever your thing is today. Turn everything off
Mm,
for about an hour. Sit with just yourself and make that list. Make a list of all the things you're currently saying yes to, all the things you're currently saying no to,
yeah.
and then start moving them on that list so
Yeah.
that they're starting to balance in a way that is fruitful for your life and for theirs. Now that you've heard some new ways that by saying, no might even give them some more confidence, some other things. So take your yeses and your nos and evaluate them today. Look at them and see which side of that list maybe you can move something to. Could you move something? Yeah.